You're listening to the House of Chapters podcast. Welcome to the House of Chapters, Tom. I'm really happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's great to be here.
We planned it in a way why did we choose March for our episode?
Right, tonight we're recording this on Sunday, March 15. Earlier today, I just released the last chapter of my most recent novel in my serial on Substack.
So let's hear about your story. Do you want to tell us the plot in 1 minute of the first book or the second book, or you can do 1 minute
I
each?
can give you the larger series log line easily. You want to start the clock? Are we setting a timer, or am I just going to talk fast and hope I can?
No, you can get started. Try to stay around 1 minute, but it's just
Ready?
let's go.
Okay. Long story short, there were two major empires in this region that fought each other to a standstill and both collapsed.
Mhm.
There's a power vacuum. A new superpower has come down from the north and they're taking over everything. And standing in their way is my protagonists, a tiny pagan tribe of mercenary, kind of Viking-esque sword warriors who this particular tribe worship a blood goddess, and they're definitely more in the death before surrender camp. And in this moment of extinction level event danger, their new leader is a 19-year-old kid who may or may not be all the way out of his mind. That's the story.
Wow. Okay. So you still had 5 seconds, man.
I try to talk fast.
No, that's great. Okay. Wow. So a lot going on there. So right from like off the bat, we're thrown in as a reader into a war. You said
Yes.
extinction level situation.
Every other tribe except for my protagonist's tribe has already been defeated and destroyed, pretty much.
Last
and
one
there
standing.
In the very beginning, they are hosting a bunch of refugee women and children, and because of the first crazy thing my protagonist Koreva does, they have to basically send all the women and children out into the desert to a large city far enough away that no one will ever find them. And then all the warriors go out to this chosen battlefield to get ready to basically have their last stand against a much, much larger army.
Okay.
And from there, things get complicated, and I'm not going to go into the entire plot because I've already gone way past my 1 minute now. But it's less about the war. That's all just book one. Book two, I'm not going to give away any of the plot of book two because I want people to be able to start this from the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
But it's more about themes of, I think, what we do as people when our backs are against the wall, who we want to be when the world is collapsing around us, and then showing the horror and the danger and the pain, the grief of war than it is about just running around talking about tactics and, how cool my sword is. This is a more, it's grounded. It's supposed to hurt.
So, what gave you the idea for this story? When did you just wake up and you started writing this story? What
Oh no, this was about 15 years ago. I had an idea in my head of kind of this cycle of violence, these two families feuding with each other, and it kind of had more in common with The Godfather than it did with any fantasy novel at that point. And I also have always had kind of in my head the scene in Macbeth where Banquo comes back as a ghost and he's staring at Macbeth across the dinner table, smiling at him, and Macbeth loses his mind. And so I kind of had those two elements and nothing else. And so the first version of what I wrote was unreadably terrible, and I disavowed it and put it in a drawer for like 10 years and never thought about it again. And then when the pandemic happened, I got an opportunity to read a lot of history, late Roman period, early medieval, basically the collapse of the last ancient orders, the last ancient empires in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
the Eastern Roman Empire, the pre-Byzantine, whatever you want to call it, and the Persians, who they had been fighting against for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it begins to sound familiar. And they basically fought each other to a standstill. They fought each other for 50 or 60 years straight, and then they were both so weak that when Muhammad and company came out of the Arabian desert, they didn't have any infrastructure left to defend themselves and collapsed immediately in the face of the new power.
Mm.
And that's kind of the end of the ancient period.
Okay, so
And this power vacuum is what got me. I was like, wait a second. That story that I had in my head a while ago, if I actually put it into the context of everything is collapsing already, now it starts to make sense.
mm-hmm. So the it's a genre shift that you did also during that time, or was it fantasy, dark fantasy at the beginning, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
You know, it's hard to tell. I'm not 100% sure I'm writing fantasy now, even. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know whether I would call this a particular genre. I think there's too many elements of realism. There is no magic system. It's
Mm.
very historically, I wouldn't say historically accurate because
Yeah.
it's in a different version of our world, but it's supposed to be as believable as possible
Mm-hmm.
while still taking place somewhere else.
Okay.
So the dark part was already there because the ghost story aspect, although I made it much darker once I realized that I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the military aspects obviously were already there, but I needed to learn a lot about how the mechanics of battle worked in order for that to make more sense.
Okay.
And, you know, it was just good to have, honestly, it was good to have that 10 years of just being able to put good artwork and good film and television and some good nonfiction writing and some good fiction writing all into my brain and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of put more influences together into the mixer. It wouldn't have been as good as I believe it is now if I had stuck with it at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So, what made you think that it wasn't good 15 years ago? What made you put it in the drawer, like you said?
So it was basically just a bunch of guys running around stabbing each other for revenge.
Yeah.
And then whenever I asked, why did this happen in the first place, I didn't have a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just a failure of world building, that none of the characters had any motivation to
Mm-hmm.
be there. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't believable, and it was just kind of empty calories of violence. And even the violence wasn't written all that well because I wasn't ready to do it yet.
Okay.
But, you know, sometimes you can tell,
Yeah.
you read something that you're in the middle of writing, you're like, I'm nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was nowhere.
It's not even about research or anything. Maybe it's this writing what you know, or writing what you don't know, and you can tell.
Yeah,
Is that,
definitely.
is that and so something interesting you said was it's not about necessarily about the military part or like how good the sword is. It's about war and grief and what it does to people, right? Was
Hmm.
that an aspect that was missing 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, I think I meant for it to be there
Mm-hmm.
10 or 15 years ago and didn't understand how to express that in writing
Mm-hmm.
yet. One of the best nonfiction works I've read in the last dozen years is a journalist's account of the Battle of Mosul back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy named James Verini. He wrote a book called They Will Have to Die Now, and it's him embedded with the Iraqi army
Mm-hmm.
outside Mosul and watching them very slowly retake the city from Daesh
Mm-hmm.
and interacting with civilians who are kind of not even necessarily on one side or the other, but just caught in the middle
Mm-hmm.
and getting bombed by everybody and getting bombarded with propaganda from both sides. And so everybody is just kind of disaffected and frustrated. And some of them do have kids who are fighting for Daesh. And, you can tell it's going to end badly. And just from the title, they will have to die now. That involves, there is um, what is it? There is a guarantee, a promise from the beginning that there's no way this ends in a happy way,
Mm-hmm.
and it pays off. And the end is predictably devastating and painful, but there's also some aspects of real, like, stunning beauty to it that
Mm.
is about the history of the city of Mosul, which was Nineveh back in the day, and the culture and, you know, all of the way that this man was able to tie in the battle and the violence and also the people and the emotions that the people were living with, living through this horrible
Mm-hmm.
siege, and then the larger history of the city and the region all together into one narrative was, you know, absolutely top notch.
And a big influence on your work in that sense.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely made a big difference, frankly, in how I decided to portray the city that most of the action in the series, not in the first novel, but definitely from the second novel on,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the action takes place around this central city that wound up being influenced significantly by the descriptions of uh, early period Mosul.
It's incredible how these things make their ways into our stories or have such an impact on our life and what we read.
Oh yeah, it's
That
incredible.
and then they make their way into what we write. Wow, really interesting. Do send me the link so I can share it under the episode if you
Oh,
can.
for Varini's book, yeah, for sure. I'll
Mm-hmm.
send it.
That'd be really cool. Tell us a bit about your writing process for the first novel and if it changed for the second novel.
I don't really talk about the mechanics of the writing because I don't know enough to know what I'm doing right.
Mm-hmm.
What I know for sure is if I don't have the motivation to create a believable character, then I don't have a character yet. That is
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I know I think I'm doing pretty well is I know kind of how to write people,
Mm-hmm.
and the story kind of shapes itself around that. And if I don't have believable characters in the larger arc that I'm trying to chase, then I got to either fix the arc or fix the characters or find some way to twist it together so that it actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
that
love
is
that.
kind of
Yeah.
my priority more than hitting specific beats.
Yeah. I love that though. Character driven in that sense. Yeah, if the
Yeah,
characters are not believable, the story is not believable. Simple as that, right?
that is the way I went with it. And from there, it's just about keeping things simple enough that I can hold on to, I don't know, 70 characters' motivations all at the same time in my head because obviously it's a large supporting cast. It's an
Yeah.
entire tribe worth of guys.
So it's definitely fantasy then if you say
Sure.
70
Sure,
characters.
sure, 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 sure.
But
Yeah, I
so
guess that's
did,
the.
at what point did Substack come into to this?
Um, I was looking for a place to put the writing to see if it was any good.
Mm-hmm.
My mother in law and
Mm-hmm.
my wife said, I've heard people are doing this on Substack. I said, okay, sure. Nothing happened for the first couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And then outside of the writing aspect, I found a way to make an impact in some people's lives. There was another writer on here who was going through a family emergency. His house had he had gotten caught in a terrible winter storm, and his roof was coming down, and
Mm-hmm.
he had to move, and he didn't have the cash to move. I came up with an idea to help get him some cash that wasn't just passing the hat around. It was giving him an opportunity to actually do work and sell his work as opposed to just ask for money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
that felt better to him and it felt good to me. And it helped raise some of the money to get him and his family out of there. And that was
Incredible.
kind of the beginning of how I got my name out there. Was had nothing to do with the writing at first. It was just, I want to help people.
Mm.
That's more important than me making a name for myself as a writer. If I was able to use what I had to uh, get some people some help where they needed it, especially, talented artists like this guy is. Very, very talented dude. I wanted to see if I could help him out. And that was kind of, you know, it was a nice after effect that it got my name out there. It was a nice after effect that this guy all of a sudden, once he read my work, was excited to pass it around because he liked it. But even
Mm.
if he hadn't liked it and wasn't able to pass it around at that point, at least I'd done a good turn, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that snowballed into what fiction, fiction is culture now. It's kind of the, get a little mutual aid gang of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And we try and help people put together little campaigns to raise some money for themselves in emergencies when we need to. So that's kind of honestly been more rewarding than just people liking my work. I like that people like my work. It's obviously lovely that people like my work, but I think the fact that I'm also able to help people in really dangerous, difficult moments get a little bit more calm or get somewhere to live or even just honestly a bite to eat. You know, that's more important. We are people first.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible. Do share all the links so I can put them under the
Oh yeah, absolutely.
under this post, and so people can find what you're talking about and read more about it.
Thank you. I will.
So to get to the last part of our chat, more Substack related in that sense. What are some things that worked and what didn't? And then later on, if you have some advice to share.
I really do think the timing of the day.
Yeah. Tell us more.
The first novel I dropped was I did I think every day. I think I did every other Wednesday at about 11:30ish in the morning Eastern time, right before everyone had their lunch break, and that seemed to do, at least to me at that point, it seemed to do a decent amount of business.
Wow.
And I have done Sunday mornings this year for book two, and I'm not sure whether this is part of the problem, of course, is that I'm not sure whether this is because the algorithm has changed or whether I've made a mistake or whether I'm even just wrong and the numbers are just as good as they were back when. I feel like it's gone a little slower.
Yeah.
And I'm not in a way that I'm worried about because this is not yet the moment where I'm trying to get massive, massive, massive views and likes and hit counts. This is almost like my ARC run for a few people that I know are going to be into it and restack every quote they come across that they like. And that has been really gratifying.
If you had to give someone advice who's getting started on writing, but also serials or on Substack or in general a book, what would you do again and what wouldn't you do again?
I found my people. I have a circle around me now after almost a year and a half on the platform of people that I will run around screaming my head off in support of, and they will do the same. We all mutually love each other's work. We like each other as people. The likelihood of any one person making it, so to speak, as an author in the 2020s it's a long shot. Even those of us who have the goods, you can have the most impressive writing out there, but it still takes many, many factors of luck, and luck isn't always with everybody, and it takes timing, and it takes, being willing to live online. And I don't know who has the time for that. We also still got to eat.
Yeah.
It's just not easy to do.
Yeah.
And the group of people that I know now that I didn't know a year and a half ago, I expect I'll be friends with some of these people for a very, very long time. And I like that more. I care about that more than if I hit some viral note and it springboards me into a week of notoriety. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, let's find your people.
Yeah. Okay.
My advice is find your people, write the best stuff you can write something you like a lot, edit it to within an inch of its life, ask for genuine feedback from people who know more than you, offer to promote their work before you ask for anything in return.
Yeah.
If you and make sure, just by the way, make sure that that's genuine.
Yeah, we're gonna finish off with important dates. What's ahead now for Tom Schecter and the Shieldbreaker saga? What should we keep in mind?
Since I released the first novel in the early June last year, I'll probably release the second novel of this and paperback early June this year. Seems like a nice cyclical way to do it. I'm sure there will be other side projects available down the road, and as they come up, I'm sure I will make sure to tell you early so that you have an opportunity to ask me questions about them if you're curious.
Yeah. Man, it was really great having you on the show, and just in general meeting you online on Substack, and just everything that you and I are doing. It's cool to be in the same part of the same community.
It absolutely is. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Take care, man. Bye.